So we have officially reached the end of my team-by-team previews for the 2018 NFL season. It's exciting to me, thank God. I've been trying to cram these out the past couple of days. Thanks to all of you that actually bothered to watch these. I appreciate your efforts, and hopefully you appreciate mine. But we are at the end, mercifully, thankfully, oh sweet Jesus, and we kind of settle back into the flow of regular Schleg Daddy TV NFL season type of stuff. Q&As, weekly picks, weekly recaps, mock drafts, commentaries, you know, the usual type of deal that you know and love from me. Anyways, let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. This is a team before 2016, makes the move to Los Angeles. They make the big deal up the board from 15-1 to go get Jared Goff, the quarterback from California. For some reason, they decided that moving to a place like Los Angeles, nothing would excite the fan base of old, quite like Jeff Fisher in charge. And nothing would be better for Jared Goff's development as a young quarterback than Jeff Fisher. I still don't get it to this day. But 2016, you move to a new market and you stink. Flat out, you stink. And if anything, the positive that comes out of that is Jeff Fisher is ultimately shown the door. Yeah. Exciting stuff. And it was too. Because now it gives you a chance to go out there and see who's going to be that next coach. And whereas before they had this experienced kind of veteran head coach, they went in a completely opposite direction and end up hiring Sean McVay, this young kind of offensive guru, quarterback whisperer type. What was he, 30 years of age? And it's the type of head coaching hire that either does one of two things. It either works out spectacularly well and you look like geniuses for doing it, or it works out really, really poorly and you look like a clown show for doing so. Now, when you're Sean McVay and you bring in somebody like a Wade Phillips to be your defensive coordinator, that gives you an indication that the guy kind of has a good strategy and knows what he's doing. But you look at the Rams, you know, what happened in 2016? Gurley was subpar. Jared Goff was on the bench the first half of the year, and then when he came in, he was terrible. So a team that has spent a top 10 pick on a running back, a number 1 overall pick on a quarterback, had sit there and looked like they were going to potentially ruin both of those guys. And all the while on defense, you have one of the best defensive players in all the league, and Aaron Donald, and all the magnificent things he could do. This team should have been a whole lot better than they were in 2016, and Jeff Fisher is the primary reason why they weren't. That and the offensive line. So in that last offseason, the team got to work. They bring in guys like Andrew Whitworth. You bring in Sean McVay, obviously, as the head coach. You make the trade to go get Sammy Watkins. You draft Cooper Kupp. And 2017, it was like, glory, glory, hallelujah. People have been waiting a few years for the Rams to break out, and it finally happened. Well, they win 11 games. I mean, this Rams team was fun, young, exciting to watch. They were a good story with an interesting young head coach, an interesting young franchise quarterback, an interesting MVP caliber running back. And if anything else, I know the season did not end in the best fashion, losing that home wildcard game to the Atlanta Falcons. But when you look at where the Rams had been just a year before to where they ended up at the end of 2017 and all the positives that go with it, Gurley being the Todd Gurley you envisioned when you drafted him 10th overall out of Georgia, Jared Goff showing that he can be that franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years, which is exactly what you envisioned when you made that huge move up the draft board from 15-1 and you ultimately took him over Carson Wentz. You look at it, and even if Sammy Watkins didn't have the best year, this team did enough. They had enough offensively. They were young. They were exciting. They were able to move the ball. You know, they got some big plays on defense at times. They were a fun team to watch, which creates a lot of expectations for 2018. And you got a lot of people really pumping this team up, and it's understandable. Not only do they have a good, solid core in place, a young franchise quarterback, a stud running back. You look at having Aaron Donald, and now he's back in the fold after that contract holdout. They trade for Brandon Cooks, who to me does represent an upgrade over Sammy Watkins, even if it cost you a first-round pick to do so. You bring in guys like Ndamukong Suh and Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters. So you've made several notable additions to a defense that really did need an influx of talent and production. And it appears like they got that. Didn't leave them with much room to add anything in the draft, but that's okay for the Rams. And you could clearly tell based off of the vision and approach in this offseason that General Manager Les Snead is in win-now mode. Now, whether or not that's the right way to go remains to be seen. But if there is a time to do it, it is now. You're coming off of a divisional title. You're coming off of a playoff appearance where your young team has gotten a bit of a taste of success. You've got a young franchise quarterback on a rookie deal. If there's ever a time to try and go all in the next year or two, now is the time before you have to start thinking about paying Jared Goff $30+ million a damn season. This is the time to do it. So if nothing else, I understand wanting to trade for Talib and trade for Peters and sign Ndamukong Suh and trade for Brandon Cooks and give him a crap ton of money. Because you're trying to get it done now, because who cares about 5, 8, 10 years down the road? Let's get through this one and maybe the next one or two. And I get that. Whether or not it works remains to be seen. But when you look at this team, that offense is still really good. Jared Goff, I anticipate being more of what he was in 2017. Todd Gurley, even if he comes down just a little bit, will still be really damn good and a marquee running back in this league. On that defense, even though you lose Tremaine Johnson in free agency, you've still got LaMarcus Joyner there. Now you bring in two quality corners like Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters, and Talib being familiar with Wade Phillips and that defensive scheme. That has to be considered a strength of the team. And then obviously defensively, it starts and begins, middles, and ends with Aaron fucking Donald. He's a beast. He's a stud. And finally, good on the Rams for getting their heads out of their rears and getting the contract done and getting his ass with the team. Because if you're going to go all in, that means you're in it to win it now. And there is no way in God's green earth, in the bluest of blue fucks, that anybody with a brain thinks the Rams are going to win all now without Aaron Donald on the field. So you get past the temporary stupidity and the leveraging and the bargaining and negotiation and griping and all that, and you got it done. And that was key. Now, my concerns for this team are as follows. When I look at that linebacking core, it's not particularly strong. You traded off Alec Ogletree in the offseason. Linebackers, even with him, weren't great. They're really not good now. In particular, I look at them running that 3-4, and I question just how much pressure they're going to be able to generate off the edge. And if you're running a 3-4 and you're not generating a lot of pressure with those outside linebackers, then you really have to question why you're running a 3-4. Now, thankfully, Aaron Donald is so good he can fit any scheme, but you still should be playing a 4-3 if you don't have the better personnel outside to be able to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And I'm really concerned about that for them. Even with the upgrade at corners, they needed that upgrade at corners because they're going to struggle to generate edge pressure. Then I'm also worried about a couple of other things outside of just the roster. I'm worried about the chemistry of the team. You bring in all these big names, the Cooks, the Suhs, Talibs, Peters. Some of these guys, Suh, Talib, Peters, even Cooks, have reputations of being difficult to deal with, being kind of difficult personalities. How many personalities are too many personalities for this team? And for a team that seemed to be building it the right way through the draft and with young talent, now all of a sudden you give this big influx of veterans in the peak of their career, you know, it changes the dynamics. And sometimes it can change the dynamics for the good and sometimes not. And sometimes you have to be a little leery of building your team so strongly through free agency and trades. You can use those spots to supplement and fill holes on your team, but when you are trying to add several notable stars here, it's in part to compensate for the draft picks lost with the deal to move up in 2016 to get Jared Goff. I understand that, but when you add this many different type of personalities, it can create some chemistry issues. And now with the Rams, they're not going to jump up and surprise anybody. Now you're playing from a different perspective. You've got the pressure of expectations. People are expecting the Rams to win this division. People are expecting the Rams to make big noise in the playoffs. People are expecting the Rams to possibly get to the Super Bowl. That is an entirely different pressure than expecting the Rams to maybe get to 500 or above. Entirely different. And if they don't get to where they're expecting to, based off of the philosophy that they exercised this offseason with going all in with the moves that they made, then you wonder how quickly things could unravel and fall apart here. In terms of the Rams schedule, I look at September. You start off with a road game at Oakland on Monday night. Better be a win. And then you got the next three at home. You've got the Cardinals, the Chargers, and the Vikings. You know, it's a chance for the Rams to get off with a decent start. You should handle business against Oakland. You should beat Arizona at home. And then you got two more home games against two quality opponents in the Chargers and the Vikings. At least win one of those two, and you're 3-1. You win both of them, you're 4-0, and you're looking really damn scary. And then October, you've got 3 straight road games: Seattle, Denver, San Francisco, and then your one home game. You happen to host the Packers. You're going to find out a lot about this Rams team very quickly. How quickly is Aaron Donald going to be in top peak condition? How well is the defense with Sue and Talib and Peters going to be able to gel and mesh? If they get through those first 8 games and they're sitting there at 6-2, maybe even 7-1, then yeah, this team is going to look really, really scary come that second half of the season and heading into the playoffs. And it could happen. Now, I'm not sure I'm ready to hop on the bandwagon for the Rams being a Super Bowl team just yet. But this team is good and is really good, and barring anything unforeseen, to me is clearly the class of the NFC West. And while I have some reservations or concerns about building a team like they are doing right now and going all into the fashion and degree that they have, I understand it and I get it. And with a young quarterback on a rookie contract, this is the time to do it. I'd be stunned if the Rams don't win this division by a couple of games. I'd be stunned if the Rams don't end up being one of the top 2 seeds in the NFC. I think they're a 12-4 team waiting to happen. They're going to win that division. And unless they get hit by a Mack truck or something disastrous happens, they should be a little bit of a force to reckon with come playoff time.